the 5th of November, Guy Fawkes Day, 2021. Welcome everybody. Hope everybody's doing good. Doing good, if that's possible anymore. I'm Dana Durnford. I'm also known as the nuclearproctologist.org. You can call in at 709-589-4406. 444406. Sheesh. Nuclear hates you. It really, really does. Let's get at it. Protests and celebrities going on today. Work at the Fukushima plant to go on for 10,000 years. You can protest it later. Lots of times it'll be around for 10,000 years, right? Step forward for Sizewell C is a new nuclear power plant they're planning on building in the United Kingdom. And I don't know if you can notice it because these are bad angles, these shots to use. This is only recent we see them do this, by the way. But it's actually all farmland. Everything farmland. And you got nuclear meltdowns and nuclear reactors hemorrhaging into farmland. Why would you have a nuclear power plant in the farmland when you know it's going to release radiation all the time? Where's the logic in that? You're going to poison everybody. Surely they must have noticed that. So they're building these disease factories and cancer factories in farmland. That doesn't concern anybody? It's okay. It never stops there, do it? No one died of radiation at Fukushima, IAEA boss says, and met with laughter at COP26. This is from scumbags at Forbes, by the way. Forbes is degenerate pro-nuclear, so they were trying to scoop the narrative, right? So they were laughing at him anyway because he said nobody died. Because he said nobody died at Fukushima. Let's do that again. Its appeal is part of a country's energy mix and dispels the concerns of nuclear waste and safety, but his assertions that the multiple nuclear meltdowns at Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant in the town of Okuma, which forced evacuation of more than 160,000, it was actually 500,000, resulted in no deaths from exposure. It was met with, skepticism. Resulted in no deaths from exposures. Now he's the head of the IAEA, which is UN. And I'll show you why that's such a degenerate thing to do. No one died at Fukushima, grossy scumbag says, provoking laughter from the audience. He said, I don't know why you're laughing. It's a fact, he said. It's a fact. Thousands of people died because of the tsunami, but there was no deaths attributed to exposure to radiation. And in one context, right, you got to realize what he's really saying was that they blamed it on everything else. Did your great-great-grandfathers smoke? Were you drinking lattes yesterday? They're bad for your health. Got to put that into the scale. The death rates actually might give the creeps to some people. And in one community, a single community, there was excess 12,700 people in just a single month died from heart attacks compared to any other year. That don't give you creeps. I'm confused. He said people also died from evacuation, the scumbag. The problem with that was that we have many examples of mass evacuations worldwide from typhoons and cyclones and hurricanes. And we don't see thousands of people dying for no apparent reason, only because they're evacuated. We don't even see 5, let alone 3,000. they were caught in the plume. That's why they evacuated. People evacuated because of the death plumes. You don't evacuate because you're bored or you're... This is not like you got a hurricane coming through where you can see the destruction and everything. You get it away because if you breathe it, it catches up to you. It was very traumatic, he continued. We're taking this very seriously. This is not a laughing matter. So, first off, the numbers are in the multi-millions per square meter throughout the country. Becquerels per kilogram is hundreds of thousands throughout the country. And 50 becquerels a kilogram in humans lead to irreversible lesions in their organs. Because nuclear radiation is the most carcinogenic thing that exists. And it also causes heart diseases and strokes and lung problems and liver and respiratory, pituitary and thyroid and adrenaline. Cancer is not the only one. Cancer risk is, by the way, of a child's risk of cancer from radiation is up to 100 times higher than an adult for a child with the same exposures. And then they raised the limits for children 75 times higher than the crazies that this corporation known as World Health Organization did, which were crazies from the United Nations, by the way. And it's clear that low-level contamination is more dangerous than a single dose of radiation. Human embryos in the US are bioaccumulating iodine, cesium, and strontiums. Infant deaths were up in BC, Canada after Fukushima. Infant mortalities were also up in Idaho, particularly infant mortality events in the 14 weeks following Fukushima. The NRC wants radiation exposure limits 100 times higher than environmental protection agencies. The nuclear regulatory committees, which don't regulate, wanted to increase the limits by 100 times so they wouldn't have to pass out iodine tablets. Because otherwise you got to evacuate people. These cowards left them there to die. They get sick and die over time. 11 becquerels a kilograms in children, you start to see heart problems. Irreversible heart damage for children with 50 becquerels a kilogram. And they're just talking gamma, not talking alpha or beta or neutrons. You know, uranium, and plutonium, and curium, and americium, and neptunium. Radiation in small doses actually be disproportionately worse, and the doses spread out over time might be more dangerous than doses given at once. Yeah, because it's the X-ray effect where it's pulsing energy at the speed of light, whether it's in your body or out of your body. When they hit each other at almost the speed of light, to change direction, it's a braking effect. It's well known, and it creates an X-ray also. And this is a very dangerous environment. This goes on, as you can see my Geiger counter, 299 counts per minute. Energy pulsing. Some of that coming from outdoors, pulsing through my wall and hitting the Geiger counter. That's the kind of energy we're talking about. Fukushima girls have 3 times more thyroid tumors than boys. And just 0.8% of children in 2001 of the Japanese control group had thyroid tumors. Now it's 35%. And that's, when you scale it up, it's 350,000 out of a million, when it used to be 1 or 2 per million. 13,646. Not out of a million, because it used to be 1 or 2 per million. But 13,646 tumors for children out of 40,000. You're supposed to evacuate Japan. Try wrapping your mind around it. That's what carbon-free nuclear is, baby. It kills everything. Oh, by the way, the Conference of Parties, 126, this is day 6. Coalition worth 130 trillion. 130 trillion. Big grab for a corporation like McDonald's or Walmart has the chance of controlling $130 trillion. They'll murder everything on their planet to get that kind of a paycheck. They're just humans like me or you. except they are criminals. This is the biggest Ponzi scheme in human history. The United Nations are not even supposed to exist. They can be a corporation, but they don't have sovereignty over your countries. It's outrageous. I found this really interesting. Look at the boots these people got on. Look how big these... they got webbed feet or something? What the hell is going on there? See how the two of them over in the top right-hand corner get these extra long feet? And the guy behind them is suspect too? What the hell is that all about? What the hell is that all about? Ellie Goulding shares a rare selfie with her son Arthur as she attends, and my apologies, I'm thinking about something else. As she attends Conference of Parties 26. She was invited down to be a spokesperson. Our future generations shouldn't have to inherit a broken planet. You got no idea. The singer was announced as an advocate for the 13-day summit that started on Halloween. She doesn't understand. It's more radiation every day. There is no future for her or her children if she's going to pick the side of evil. She probably doesn't know any better, see? But if she promotes getting rid of coal instead of getting rid of nuclear, which is the actual reason for climate change, right? Because this is radioactive fallout. That's climate change. These are invisible plumes that you can't see or smell or taste or hear or feel or touch or pick up or throw rocks at it. That's a nice one. Hey, that's a plutonium. He's real pretty looking, Dana. I know. That's why I used them. Hang on. So this is France's model of the radioactive faller covering the Atlantic. Continuous plume rather in the Pacific. Continuous plume in Northern Hemisphere. Continuous plume covering the planet. That's the Atlantic, that's Europe, right? Blah, 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 blah. So banning coal, which everything is already acclimated to, just don't put your coal plants in the middle of the city, stupid. Coal, by the way, coal plants don't make plumes covering the entire planet, pulsing energy every second. Gas and oil and coal emissions don't create plumes that covers the planet, don't create plumes that cover the planet that pulse energy every second for millions of years, heating up the planet at the speed of light. And singers showing up for a corporation is just, you got to do it or you can't cut your next album, right? So first electric public transport double-decker buses on the island of Ireland. Wow, that's amazing. Congratulations. You're going to, COP26, so they're going to cut climate change, right? Yeah, baby, that's right, Dana. They're going to cut it. And they actually got 100 zero emission buses is going to cut the emissions, Dana. So don't mess with them, Dana. I'm not. I'm just saying that one big container ship is equal to 50 million cars. You know, I'm just saying that 15 of the world's biggest ships are equal to all the cars on the planet, 760 million cars. So I don't think your little buses is going to cut it, okay? That's just me. But it's an easy $74 million that don't help out the pensioners and the people who created the country in the first place, which also includes 20 hydrogen fuel buses. Well, the hydrogen is the most carbon-intensive thing in the bloody history. Cleaner, greener, sustainable transport is key to protecting our environment and fighting the climate crisis. Money, 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 74 million monies. Conference of Parties 26. Political leaders are passing responsibilities of saving the world to the younger generation. Okay, so Miles Allen, professor and director of Oxford Net Zero. Net Zero.
The clashes were violent and widespread. Hundreds of police and anti-nuclear protesters chased each other through the fields and woodland near Vallon. Roadblocks were set up to try to prevent more protesters converging on the area, but at one point a group managed to block a section of the railway line.
Well, that's what you do for protesting. You don't... Children can't fight back against the cops, right? And they got a cop every 20 feet. They got 10,000 cops there, and they blow protesters right into proportions. A few people glued their hands to the ground. Oh, the poor cops were traumatized, Dana. It was horrible. They couldn't drink their extra coffees and donuts. So, Miles, he's the climate guy. He's Mr. Net Zero. That's Mr. Net Zero. That's where Net Zero came from, this guy here. Oh my God. And you can listen to that interview. I did most of it today, not all of it. Try to listen to the rest of it tonight. And he don't talk like UN at all, that fella. He was surprised that UN jumped on this the way they did. Isn't that always the story? He said, this is the point where you should get angry. It's not complicated. So he's been described as the physicist behind Net Zero. And his career is just a weird, it's not really like, he never got a Nobel Prize for this. He's not like James Hansen, right? Going out and lying to everybody about nuclear and getting $1 million, the Asian version of the Nobel Prize from Taiwan. No, he doesn't understand what's going on. He's like, this is great. My site is still up, but the UN gives a call, dog, and chat with me sometime. UN's like, stay away. We got Net Zero now. That's ours. They probably got a patent on the word now, if I know UN. We need to stop fossil fuels from causing global warming, Dana. Yeah, but fossil fuels don't pulse energy every second. Miles? You know what I mean? You hearing me, bro? It doesn't pulse energy every second. Forever and ever and ever and ever. Carbon emissions, or gas emissions, fuel emissions, oil emissions, coal emissions, they don't cover the planet in radioactive plumes and pulse energy every second, forever and ever and ever. So, it's the same thing. All of these plume models is showing you what global warming is, what climate change is. This acceleration happened in 2011. In 2015, the scumbags around the world got together, this global disorder, got together and decided, let's blame it all on their tin cans and pop bottles and cardboard and promote nuclear. because no one's going to say, well, nuclear's the problem. They're like, no. Coal's the problem. Coal doesn't do this. Nuclear does that. Nuclear does it. Nuclear is the problem. You can't see it or smell it or taste it or hear it or touch it or pick it or throw rocks at it, or we either ban fossil fuel altogether and force that ban everywhere in the world, or require anyone selling or using fossil fuels to ensure that the carbon dioxide they generate is safely and permanently disposed of, not just dumped in the atmosphere like nuclear. So he just described nuclear radioactive fallout perfectly, didn't he? But he's saying that carbon is the issue, not the actual radioactive fallout that is the issue. We've been doing this for years, and this is the norm. Nobody's going to say the truth. They're all going to tell you this exact same words. The sentences are the exact same. They're framed the exact same ways. It's word for word for word for word for word. Nobody has their own opinion. It's just regurgitate the same paragraphs, the same pictures, and the same authors over and over and over and over everywhere. And so when people go looking for an alternative view, all they find is the same narrative. And they either give up, or they start regurgitating the narrative like these useful children are doing. And they love using the children because the children are not going to kick the shit out of them like they should be doing.
The clashes were violent and widespread. Hundreds of police and anti-nuclear protesters chased each other through the fields and woodland near Vallon. Roadblocks were set up to try to prevent more protesters converging on the area, but at one point a group managed to block a section of the railway line.
Well, you can pretend it's not the problem, but it's the problem. These plumes are the problem. So Miles Allen, let me tell you something. From the UK Research Innovation, which is just, that's not a plus, buddy. It's not something I'd be bragging about. European Commission, and the European Commission is funding from UK Research Innovation and the European Commission, and he's a member of the advisory board. So they gave him some raises and that, right, to be their altar boy for Dr. Evil. Miles Allen is the physicist behind net zero. What they done was used all kinds of modeling, and they got thousands of models. He said, that one there, yeah, let's publish that one. That looks pretty fancy. Get my Nobel Prize yet. Fukushima superhero tells kids the arch enemy's bad reputation. Bad reputation. So talking about it means you're causing issues. That's what you're teaching children. That's outrageous. That's Goebbels and Göring. That's Hitler's routine, right? Major U.S. papers trying to quit nuclear power altogether. Threatens the very existence of human civilization as we know it. Doomsday-like radiation. Doomsday-like. I love that. One of my favorite words. Release of fire in the pool of Unit 4 to be a global catastrophe. So if they had a fire in Unit 4, this is what it would look like. Wait a second. Where'd that come from? That's 19 days later, that frame there. Hang on. So I'll show you patterns. You like patterns? I like patterns. Exposed radiation streaming into the atmosphere after number 4 fuel pool boiled dry. But they said if the number 4 boiled dry, it'd be a global catastrophe. Like doomsday, Dana. Yeah, it's already streaming into the atmosphere. So Davis is...
3 out of the 4 plants were destroyed in the earthquake and in the tsunami. The 4th one has been so badly damaged that the fear is if there's another earthquake of a 7 or above, that building will go, and then all hell breaks loose. I have seen a paper which says that if in fact, the fourth plant goes under an earthquake and those rods are exposed, it's bye-bye Japan, and everybody on the west coast of North America should evacuate. Now, if that isn't terrifying, I don't know what. Fukushima is the most terrifying situation I can imagine.
So he said that if number 4, which is this building here, collapses, it's bye-bye Japan, and should evacuate the coast of North America. Well, let's look at the fallout. There's North America, underneath that big plume of radiation. It happened. We're supposed to all move to the southern hemisphere. Gunderson, scumbag Gunderson, move south of the equator if Unit 4 fuel pool goes dry. Well, here's Ernie Gunderson. Let's see. Now, he made assemblies for the fuel pools. These are the red depictions of both sides of them. And because there's no repository anywhere on the planet, because they're too stupid to make a repository, all the fuel is kept there with no containment. It's all hemorrhaging, splitting the atoms. All the fuel rods are splitting the atoms. Instead of making power for millions of homes, it's still producing the atoms, and they're released into the environment so they can harm all the species. It's absurd numbers every day from 440 reactor buildings. Arnie Gunderson said that if number 4 pool goes dry, well, there's number 4 over there. It's actually gone dry. There is no pool. Not only gone dry, it's gone. Listen to Arnie.
The division I ran built nuclear fuel racks for boiling water reactors exactly like Fukushima.
The division he ran?
The division I ran built nuclear fuel racks for boiling water reactors exactly like Fukushima.
And if he doesn't know they're gone, who will? So he was shocking, right? That he let these people go all over TV, along with Greenpeace and many others, and pretend they're in the fuel pool on top of the building that don't exist.
We are here inside Reactor 4 at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant that was severely crippled during the earthquake and tsunami of 2011, leading to the country's worst nuclear disaster.
Right? Did you get it yet? Move south of the equator if number 4 goes, and he used to build
the division I ran built.
Now he knows they're gone. So does David Suzuki. Ambassador Murata writes to UN General Secretary, "It's no exaggeration to say the fate of the world and the whole world depends on number 4 reactor." Well, number 4 didn't even exist, but the media pretending they're at a fuel pool that doesn't even exist. And that's okay, that's normal. What else have they done? Who knows what else they've been doing? If they're willing to do that, all the medias are willing to do exactly that. They're pretend on live TV that here you are at Fukushima Invisible Reactor 4 fuel pool. And you got Gunderson saying move south of the equator if it goes. And do you really think I'm the only person that got that picture on this planet? It's out there everywhere. So it'd be a doomsday amount of radiation. Radioactive xenon-133 from Fukushima was in Washington at 450,000 times above detection levels after Fukushima, and it persisted for weeks. So what that means is that whole area, it's just, they're only talking about xenon-133, which is nasty, but these are incredible plumes we're talking about, loaded with fission products. And to make matters worse, they're growing food right by the nuclear meltdowns and right by bags of radiation and selling it. This is mainstream media picture from mainstream media saying that the farmers are being accused of having radioactive food and it's outrageous, you know. What the hell, man? So it's radiation as a weapon of mass destruction. That's what we're seeing. Iceberg brought to COP26 by climate scientist and actor Mr. Wilson. Climate scientists, whose solution is always promote nuclear, have brought an iceberg and glacier meltwater from Greenland to COP26 in Glasgow with the help of the office actor Rainn Wilson. Arctic Base Camp says they shipped a 4-ton block of the Arctic. Shipped 4 tons. We're literally bringing the Arctic to Conference of Parties 26. But the reality of it is, go read that article there. Sunken radiation hazards in the Arctic. There's 18,000 that they know about, objects dumped in the Arctic. And this includes 2 submarines with fuel in the reactors. And barrels that would have broken open a very long time ago. 18,000 dumps of just this one area. It's not counting what Russia's doing down there with their weapons testing. And the list is so long, it's heartbreaking. It's disgusting what they got done. So bringing that down there and saying getting rid of coal, when the issue is Fukushima, radioactive fallout, and all nuclear power plants have fuel pools, no containment, decades of reactor cores. They're all splitting the atom. Like, the numbers we're talking about are absurd per liter of water. 120,000 liters of water evaporated every day out of each fuel pool. There's 440 of them worldwide, roughly. They all, each and every one of them, are 120, roughly, thousand liters a day, each. The fuel pools are full of reactor cores, which is fuel rods, that are got billions of microscopic cracks in them, that are hemorrhaging radiation isotopes. They're splitting the atom, and then the atom's released into the environment in the water. The water boils off each day, and that's saturated with trillions of isotopes per liter. It's absurd. Ocean health on decline. I've done the research expeditions. If you go back to conference of my 3rd video where I've done mass die-off, I show you some of the expeditions that I've done over the years doing species counts because of Fukushima. New evacuation border baffles and splits community in Fukushima. Baffles. That's pretty accurate. Evacuees are eager to return to their homes near the hobbled to the destroyed reactors, the missing reactors. The orders will end in all parts of difficult return zone in less than 6 months, but not all of them, as the town of Akuma had hoped. So there's a area that is surrounded on all sides by no entry areas. Surrounded on all sides by no entry areas is where you can come back to. Create a living enclave surrounded on all sides by no entry areas. Surrounded on all sides, residents from the enclave will be able to return to their homes, but their neighbors, even on the other side of the street, could be prohibited from returning. So you can't cross the street. You can't cross the street, but you're okay in a radioactive wasteland. Radiation migrates everywhere, every direction. It's liberated into the environment. It radiates everything around it. That emits radiation. Their neighbors, even on the other side of the street, could be prohibited from returning. In other words, you can't cross the street. This place co-hosts an ongoing multiple nuclear reactors melting down near the hobbled. This is completely destroyed buildings. Behind the barricades along the roads are still lined with empty houses. But you'll be okay in your little enclave, surrounded by no-go zones because of nuclear waste. Returning residents may be denied free access to areas outside the reconstruction base that will remain as difficult to return zones. So, in the middle of the town, they got a little area where you can live, and they'll study you like rats and your children for the rest of their lives. Nuclear is a death cult. It's an unbelievable, hideous, criminal, scumbag death cult. Calls on Tokyo to clean up and lift evacuation orders across all areas of the town because they don't understand. They're brainwashed. Like, nobody in their right mind who's aware of nuclear will go to Akuma. Nuclear scientists won't even get within 100 kilometers of it. Around 33,000 hectares of difficult to return zones exist in 7 municipalities. 7 municipalities. Oh, it's way worse than that. However, high residual radiation levels from the cleanup and delays in the restoration work have emerged. Now, first off, there's 12,900 sites where there was no change in radiation after the so-called decontamination. This is out of 561,000 places that they cleaned up. 561,000 in 14 prefectures. 561,000 places in 14 prefectures. $561,000 places and 14 prefectures that they cleaned up and kept growing food there. They never stopped growing food there, rather, for a second. They've never stopped. The radiation levels doubled within 20 days of decontamination by Japanese forces. Well, if you're in the middle of a radiation zone, you clean up an area, the radiation is going to migrate right straight back in there. And if you're in a spot with 561,000 radioactive spots that you cleaned up, which is 3% of the land, by the way, there's no way to stop it from getting recontaminated in a few minutes. Little result from the decontamination efforts at nearly 12,900 sites. Little results. And the rest of them were the same thing. They have about 60 million one-ton bags. 60 million. The big 6 million. Do I hear 61 million, 60
There's
million
about
going
60
once?
million tons. There's about 60 million tons of contaminated soil that's being stored, planned to be stored, outside the Fukushima Daiichi perimeter fence.
60 million here, 61 million there, give a million, take a million. 12,900 locations out of 560,000. You didn't clean up 560,000 for something to do, because that's where you wanted people to go back to. Imagine you got to go around to 560,000 places with your Geiger counter and write somewhere that Dana is wrong. So you got to go to all 561,232 locations and write, Dana is friggin' wrong. Go right on all them bags. Dana is wrong. Right on all those bags. Dana is wrong. Right on these bags here that Dana is wrong. Go into those ghost towns and write on the houses, come back, you big crybabies. Workers are instructed to measure the radiation doses at the site immediately after the decontamination work is completed, because if you wait a few days, it's going to be brutal numbers. And that's how they got the numbers down a little bit. As soon as they clean it up, right? Okay, give me the Geiger counter. By the way, the Geiger counter they're using only measures gamma. It doesn't measure alpha or beta or neutrons or X-rays or gamma shines or neutron bursts. It just measures some gamma, not all gamma by no means. Like mine's the same thing. If you really think that nuclear is the solution to climate change, go down to this elementary school and tell them. This elementary school in Fukushima uses bottles to shield the students. It's in Koriyama City where they're growing food and shipping to Canada and the United States, by the way. This is located in Fukushima Prefecture, 34 miles from a nuclear meltdown. It's using water bottles to shield radiation coming from the courtyards. Not from coal, not from oil, not from gas, not carbon, but from Fukushima nuclear meltdown around the school building. The bottles are filled with water and placed inside the square boxes and are stacked around the classroom. So the children can get some work done. You can write down, nuclear is good 100 times. Would you send your child to that school? Is that acceptable to anybody? Instead of evacuating the children, they got to bring their empty bottles to class so they can fill it up with water and try to protect themselves. According to the school, which refuses to evacuate the children, it seems to have reduced the radiation levels inside by 1/3. Because their Geiger counter, by the way, are shit Geiger counters, like SafeCast. They're garbage. What the SafeCast done is just, it's a whole different evil, man. There's a whole different evil. There's just incredible evil, and then there's SafeCast. Insidious, gross, despicable cowards. Oh, cesium remains dispersed throughout the water columns from the ocean surface to the ocean floor. Saturated in radioactive fallout, the entire ocean. But hey, so is the planet. Brutal radiation. These are Neptunium-239, which decays into plutonium-239, which is named after the devil, by the way. But hey, let's worry about coal. US, Japan, China, India missing from the Conference of Useful Idiot 26 coal pledge. Cold! You're not worried about 20 million particles of radiation per liter fell on the US and Canada post-Fukushima. You're worried about coal. Coal doesn't pulse energy every second. Coal's not going to make it from Japan, by the way, to Canada. Nuclear does. It's heating up the planet. It's global warming and climate change. I got 22 people on my show. Wow. I'm killing it tonight. There's a good chance to work my ass off all day, every day, so that the nuclear industry can just censor me. We got 28 votes on our poll tonight. Let's check our poll. So we got a recording of that. Should the world end nuclear power to help save the species and humanity? We got a resounding 28 votes. We got 29 thumbs up and 23 people watching it. And I work like a dog all day, every day, week after week, month after month, year after year. And I finally got 24 people on my show. It's amazing. Just what an amazing feeling. I got 24 people on my show. That was worth decades of hard work, isn't it? It's called censorship from the scum, degenerate, monstrous, hideous, gross, coward nuclear industry. Nuclear cowards say reactors will aid renewables. They're death factories, for God's sakes. They're cancer factories and disease factories, each one of them. The head of the United Nations Atomic Energy Watchdog toured the nuclear power's virtues as a complement to wind and solar energy source. And you know what? There was only one media reported on the IAEA grossly getting laughed at was Forbes, and they tried to spin it. Cowards. The industry is never cowards. And the problem is that they gave them positions of authority. They gave cowards and monsters positions of authority because they're promoting nuclear. And now we have a society ran by monsters and cowards. There are homes in Chernobyl now with children so grossly deformed. We've never seen anything like it in the history of pediatrics. Cancer at 6 instead of 60. That's what nuclear power means. And they don't even got a color television or a radio to help them pass the day, abandoned because of radiation. The industry won't give them a nickel. Nuclear power is the best, and I mean that. Not a nickel, not a Band-Aid, nothing. Nuclear power is the best climate change solution, Wall Street Journal. Nuclear power is the best. What the hell, man? Japan considers moving the capital away from Tokyo because it was 270,000 or 270 times more contaminated with cesium. There's 100 strontium-90 for every cesium-137 produced, by the way. Then global weapons fallout peak. So the Japan Prime Minister to study setting up an alternative capital away from Tokyo with 36 million people in metropolitan Tokyo. Not evacuate the people like you're supposed to do. And Tokyo is unbelievably radioactive. These scumbags, this is how they make a living. They write a little tiny article a couple times a week that sells everybody out, that murders everybody long term, and that's how they make their paycheck. They get a job at the Wall Street or Journal or wherever. Time magazine was bought by lobbying group, by the way. Nuclear power is the Conference of Parties 26 quiet controversy. Quiet controversy. In fact, what they done was they didn't want nuclear in the main building because it causes nothing but fights. They didn't want the activists targeting the main area and drawing attention, see? In the midst of Conference of Parties 26 climate talks yesterday, U.S. and Romania officials stepped aside for a closed-door session. A closed-door session. Yeah, no, you guys go away. We're United Nations, a corporation like McDonald's and Walmart. We're better than everybody. Give us all your money, we'll fix climate change. Ha ha! Ha ha! We'll fix it. Establish an agreement for U.S. company NuScale. NuScale. Their scales are like reptilians. To build a new kind of modular nuclear power plant in the Southeast European countries. So they haven't even got one built on the planet, let alone in some other country. They're selling the hype though, right? Non-stop year after year. They're not even trying to build one, for goodness sakes. It's all a scam. The company's plant designed to be quickly scaled up or down based on need. First off, you're going to use mixed oxide fuel inside of these creatures. Their minimum price is $3 billion each. So instead of paying $10 billion for a reactor, which is outrageous, you're going to pay $36 billion for it. The same power. Like, you can't contain that these little reactors will produce more tritiated water. And this is different than tritium from the normal tritium from the solar system. Man-made anthropogenic is man-made. It's not created by the sun or the universe. You won't find it in the solar system. This is why we call it man-made anthropogenic radiation. This is why we have terrorism laws, because it's so deadly and for such long periods in such a tiny amount. NuScale is yet to build a single commercial plant as evidence that the companies are already too late to the party. Because they interviewed pro and con, which is unusual, really. Fukushima radiation is still circling the globe, and the levels consistently rise and fall in 40-day cycles. U.S. study, xenon-133 burns a hole through your lungs. Then it changes to cesium-137, but it burns while it's in beta mode, burns a hole through your lungs, sequesters in your pelvis, in your bones, and mutates your stem cells. That's going to be good for you. Rain with 20 million particles of iodine-131 per liter. There's 10 times more iodine-132 for every iodine-131. There's 30 times more iodine-133 for every 131 produced. And there's 31 times more iodine-129 with every iodine-131 produced. And iodine-132 and 133 are 9 times more effective at ionizing and radiating yours and your animals and your birds and pets and insects and mammals and everything else, thyroid glands. 9 times more effective than 131. 131 is extraordinarily effective, unbelievably effective. Here's another study, and showing you that 220 million atoms per liter were in another study. So you had xenon, you had 121, 131. What you do with these numbers is you extrapolate that it's going to be saturated with plutonium, uranium, because that's what the reactors run on. Oh, by the way, the radioactive material from reactors, after it's gone through a chain reaction, are 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. Dana's like a banana and a potato chip and walking in the sunshine and getting on an airplane, Dana, and sleeping next to somebody. Dana, fear-mongering. But am I really fear-mongering? I'm just showing you the documentation. I'm not the bad guy. Nuclear industry is sitting there monitoring us in real time, laughing it up. Loving it. Just loving it. Censor, let's turn Dana's numbers down. 2 billion times more toxic. Every video is the same. 12 hours later, I got 140, 150 views on it. 48 hours later, I got 240, 270 views on it. And over the next week or two, I might get another 20 or 30 views. Every video is the exact same. You think that's an accident? Not one of my videos. They just took down my site with 24,000 subscribers. So I've had to rebuild a new site, and they got me censored like I don't even exist, so they can get a paycheck every Friday. So they can tell their children and their friends and their families that they're special, they work for the nuclear industry, that they're better than everybody. While the planet is being exterminated, they go home with their paycheck every Friday and say, look, honey, I'm the man. I'm going to pay the bills. Imagine how weak and pathetic and cowardly these people really are in real life. Nuclear plant price doubles to 28 billion as other owners balk. Over doubled, 28 billion. It's absurd. There you go. 16 owners should be prepared to die when your nuclear power plant breaks down. Not your coal plant, not your oil plant, not your gas plant. The fire department will go there. But if your nuclear power plant breaks down, 16 owners should be prepared to die. Why are we having any conversations about this? Why ain't we cutting their throats and dropping their bodies in wood chippers? I'm confused. The war, every military on the planet should be gone to war against nuclear, shouldn't they? We should be nuking the nuclear industry. A decade on, Fukushima farmers fear nuclear-tainted waters will impact their business. I showed you that earlier, the farmers growing food in a nuclear wasteland. Now they're worried dumping water that don't exist anymore. Go back through my videos and look at the videos where I've done presentations on tanks. You really want an eye-opener, go look at that. And fusion, by the way. New fusion. You're going to take thousands and tens of thousands of scientists, the sharpest minds they can find, and put them work on Fukushima. No, I'm going to take them and put them on a pipe dream. This is how crazy the industry actually is. It's completely out of control, and it's running the planet into the ground like a 747 crashing. That's what Fukushima is. The whole planet is a 747 crashing into slow motion, and we better get our asses in gear. Fukushima. So if your coal plant breaks down, or your oil plant breaks down, or your gas plant breaks down, is it time to make a geezer suicide squad? You got to make a geezer. Think about the contempt to call people that they're going to send to their deaths of geezers. Think about the incredible contempt they have for your life, these people in the nuclear industry. Think about how fucking gross these people are in real life. Vice Governor of Tokyo suggested a Fukushima draft. We all must face it. If your carbon or your gas, oil, or coal plants break down, they sends in the fire department, and they don't say shit like that. Just saying. Navy removes top officer nuclear sub after underwater crash. No, that's the throwaway guy. That's the fall guy. They waited, 2 weeks? And then they're like, okay, we fired the guy. Yeah, but what happened? Don't worry about that. We fired the guy. You got any idea how many sunken nuclear reactors they got in the ocean? Scuttled on purpose? Fukushima worker on camera. The holes and cracks in the ground are terrifying. Webcams show a massive clouds of radioactive steam rising from Fukushima. Radioactive steam. In fact, 4.7 sieverts per hour in just this one episode. When the site disappears under radioactive steam, you have to abandon the site for weeks and weeks and weeks at a time. Because lethal doses in the air. That's lethal doses. You walk through that steam, you drop dead. That's why there's no more homeless in Japan. Timmy. 2 sieverts an hour of better radiation emitted from a single liter of leaked water. Now, this is the tanks they were talking about originally. So 2 sieverts, it was actually 2.2 sieverts per hour, if you read the actual studies of the numbers. That's just better, though. It's going to be saturated with gamma, alpha, and neutrons. They're spraying water over melted reactor fuel, and they're sucking a little bit of it, a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a percent of it up, and allegedly putting it in the tanks. But if you fill the tanks up with this stuff, it's 1.4 million sieverts per tank. You can't build another tank on the site. The tanks have to be 2 feet, 12 feet thick, rather, to shield you to come up and build another tank close to it. When you got 1.4 million sieverts, it's absurd, by the way. The tanks are bolted together. So the tanks was to trick you into thinking they weren't killing the planet. Gas and nuclear lobby, one of the most vehemently hated words in my dictionary is lobby. Gas and nuclear are hard to be declared green in Europe. Gas and nuclear, which is good. The last thing you want to do is declare nuclear green, but it's hard. Gas and nuclear lobby, hard to be declared green in Europe. But it's not green. They're lobbying, though, right? Gas and nuclear is. IAEA to collect samples from coastal waters. Not from Fukushima, not from the tanks, but from coastal water. Hey, boss, you want me to go to Fukushima? No! You can't bring the equipment over there. You can't use it again. That stuff costs money, buddy. This is the stupidest thing imaginable. They've never went to Fukushima nuclear meltdown a single time. We never seen them there. There was an imaginary video of them in reactor 3, right? Before they come out and said they got all the fuel out of the pool. The building doesn't even exist anymore. Fatal radiation levels found at Fukushima, because they're not going there. So if 10 sieverts is a fatal level, what the frig is 1 million sieverts? Well, we don't know, don't want to know. We got it from the water. Don't need to go near that stuff. IAEA ain't going near that spot. Neither are scientists. Cleaning up climate policies. What role for nuclear power in Europe, says France. Disgusting parasite France. Scumbag France. Top radiation experts, 50 becquerels a kilogram in humans are irreversible lesions to your vital organs, stupids. Nuclear industry. Health specialists, children with over 11 becquerels a kilogram start to see heart problems. Irreversible heart damage for children with 50 becquerels a kilogram. And muster limit on food down there is 100 becquerels a kilogram. They're lunatics. Paris Climate Agreement impossible to fulfill without nuclear energy, says a nobody president. The elephant in the room is Fukushima radiation when it comes to Pacific animal die-offs. Not coal, not oil, not gas, not carbon, but Fukushima. Animals are starving as the food chain continues to collapse. Not from coal or gas or oil, but from radiation. Get your asses in gear on this friggin' planet. The Bryden Wood reveals plan to convert coal-fired power stations to nuclear. Radioactive iodine in Pennsylvania rainwater, 3,300%, 3,300% above federal drinking waters. Radiation in rainwater samples from San Francisco at 18,000% above federal drinking water standards. There goes your aquifers, and there goes all the pipes in your houses. And here's the proof, 40 million becquerels on the coastline. That's madness. This is pure madness. Veterans exposed by the 1960s nuclear disaster could finally get disability benefits. 60-something years later, if you're still alive. If you live this long, we'll give you a benefit. Americans sickened by nuclear tests got a pittance, while illegals stand to profit handsomely. Funding to develop laser cleaning decontamination techniques for nuclear decommissioning. You can't decommission stuff by burning off layers. You just liberate the radiation into the environment. You can't destroy radiation is the problem. Unprecedented spike of 1,500 atoms of radioactive sulfur per meter, a cubic meter in California air. Is laser going to fix that or something? Senator Markey Warren denounced Nuclear Regulatory Commission's approval of proposed decommissioning rules where they lower the safety rules for the surrounding communities and for everything else to do with the population. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission they're captured a long time ago by the industry, and they're the definition of evil. They can't, every time we see a story on Nuclear Regulatory Commission, it's like some people jump these people, tackle these people and stop them. Radiation data from Seattle area survey to be withheld by the feds, says the Nuclear Regulatory Commission for national security purposes. By the way, it's legal. It's legal, perfectly legal to poison you with radiation. Congress lacks the authority to make it illegal to poison you on top of it. All right, that should make you feel nice and safe. New nuclear medicine genocide machine unveiled. In San Francisco or California, people, males in particular, this would be true for animals too, right, and birds, 360 plus atoms of radioactive sulfur per day inhaled by Californians after Fukushima. They're just talking about the sulfur peroxide hydrogen buckyballs. They're not talking about uranium, curium, plutonium, americium, neptunium. You're not just going to inhale sulfur. It's not just a sulfur plume coming through. Scum degenerate industry, boy. These are the so you know how it is, your friends are smokers, but you don't smoke, right? And you get drunk and they start offering you cigarettes. You're like, no, I don't want a cigarette. And then the next weekend you get drunk again and they're offering you, come on, have a cigarette. And you're like, I don't want no cigarette. And after a couple of 100 days of this, you're like, yeah, give me a smoke. And now you're hooked on it. That's what nuclear does. It gives you this equipment and says it's curing you. And then they come at you with all the other nuclear stuff that murders your communities. English Willingness Project leaves their key questions and impacted residents. There's 1,200 people in this little community in northern Canada are going to make the decisions what to do with decades, 75 years of nuclear high-level waste. This is absurd. And it's all farmland, of course. You got to keep farming, though. We want you to keep farming. 6 in 10 Fukushima children tested have diabetes. Pretty soon it'll be 6 in 10 English children have diabetes. And the doctors say we're expecting diabetes in the children from English because of Fukushima radiation, because of the repository radiation. Everything is vented for decades going on there. Literally the stupidest thing you can do to your community. Fukushima is the most serious man-made disaster in human history. Obesity rates now nearly double Japan's average. Obesity is an excess weight gain after nuclear crisis is a marker of radiation brain damage. Yeah? Not from eating relentlessly, but just because you're poisoned with radiation. That's a dead... If you're healthy all along and all of a sudden you gain all kinds of weight, that's what's going on. Pneumonia cases surge in Japan. So you get pneumonia or flus that won't go away. You think Fukushima or Japanese food, scumbag Japanese food. Canadian nuclear scumbag laboratory completes safe long-term storage of waste at Port Granby site. I seen that headline and I was viciously upset about it. They entombed a reactor and just walked away for a couple of 100 years. So every time it rains, all the radiation gets washed through and out into the community. Japan Times column is the public, possibly worldwide, sickens over time. The truth will leak out about nuclear. Don't even get me started on that story. It makes me sick. Hedge funds are placing their bets on uranium, artificially inflating uranium stocks. After a decade, this is what the hedge funds have been doing now, or Sprout in particular, here in Canada. Artificially inflated now almost to $50 a pound. Hanford contractors earned final pay of $14 million. They might need another $700 billion to clean up Hanford. You'll actually bankrupt America and you still couldn't clean up 580 square miles at Hanford. Stirling Castle and nuclear climate nexus. What the hell? Oh, the UK over here has a stockpile of approximately 225 nuclear warheads, of which 120 nuclear weapons are operationally available for deployment on 4 Vanguard-class nuclear power ballistic missiles, idiot machines, also known as submarines. That's 30 per submarine. If it sinks, it's a catastrophe forever on our planet. Can't use them. It's stupid. Literally stupid. You can't even use them because you can't pay cash your checks anymore. In Japan, by 2012, there was an excess 865,000 with 3 zeros, 865 and 3 more zeros, thousands, excess people with cancers. And cancer is one of the 1,800 illnesses you'll get. Pentagon, China nuclear threat level doubles. The Pentagon is a war machine, for God's sakes. Everybody there is a military brat on top of that. All they know is murder, rape, and genocide, and ecocide, and omnicide. We may not be able to live in Japan someday. Think of that statement. 1,000 years from now, contaminated water from Fukushima will still enter in the ocean. The Pentagon rebels against Biden. Nuclear war is at stake, says the genocide machine. Human civilization may destroy itself. I mean, look at Fukushima, the liquefaction of 3 nuclear reactor cores. Leading director in Japan, nuclear power generation is the only invention that may destroy the future of humans. Major U.S. paper, time to quit nuclear power altogether. Threatens the very existence of human civilization as we know it. Nobel Prize winner, only way to preserve human life. The only way to preserve human life is to completely turn away from nuclear power plants. From nuclear power plants. You know why they're saying that? Because they had a bad day, Dana? No, because they know what's going on. Ay, 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 ay. We raised $60 last night. James Lucid, as you know him in the comments section. Bless your heart and thank you. We're going to have a fundraiser after this COP's event. We're gonna raise the money to get a set of tracks for the quad because it's snowing out there right now. And I want to get out and record the species. There, get your food from La La Land. Why are nuclear power plants all surrounded with farms? That'll be the next poll. How did the poll go tonight? We got 40 votes. My goodness. We're rocking it tonight. Should the world end nuclear power to help save the species and humanity? We're going to end that poll here in about 30 seconds. So if you want to click on it, you better hurry up. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up. We got 39 likes magically. Wow. We're killing it tonight, aren't we? I don't care about that stuff. Folks, don't pay no attention to me saying it. I'm here to go to war every day for you and for all the species on this planet. And I'm not here to lose. I'm here to win. That's what I do. We are winners. And we do it the hard way, but we are winners. The nuclear industry is a goblin, demonic, demon industry. Every person that speaks out against nuclear has the keys to heaven and gets 1,000 beer when they get there. I wish I drank, man. That'd be cool. So we got 42 votes, 98%. Let me bring it up one more time. Then we're going to close the poll. End the poll. Good night, poll. Jackie Flowers, Dana Nasana, Shane Clark, Thinker. Good night, everybody. Hugs for everybody. So that was a great poll. James Megan. James was the last night in the comment section. Megan! I'm from Newfoundland, man. Don't be surprised if I butcher your name. It's not on purpose. Thinker, Nereid Yeloft. Good night, everybody. Johnson, Timo, Ori, Christian Boyce. Good night, everybody. Have a great night. We'll see everybody tomorrow night. Robert, Kovacs. So we got to raise next week. This is over. We're going to have a fundraiser. We're going to raise around $3,000 for the tracks that are on sale right now. And that's what we want to get us. Instead of getting a skidoo for the winter, we're just going to put tracks on the quad because we've done all the work on the quad, right? Should be going for a brand new quad, but I don't have the stomach to try. Mark Rogo, it's better to have the quad tracks because it doesn't matter if you haven't got much snow. And if there's a lot of dirt, you got steering. You can steer where you're going. But a skidoo, you can't steer where you're going, right? Skidoo is scary shit, man. Good night, everyone. Hugs for everyone. Hope everybody has a great night, a great day. I'll be early tomorrow. I'll be doing like a 1 hour show. And Andrew B. Good night, everybody. Kevin Blanche, KDS. Just looking for any names I didn't give a quick shout out to. It's the end of the show, so it doesn't really matter. James Lucid, again, thanks, James. Hugs for you, my friend. I really appreciate it. Laurie Crawthorne. And Ted Richards, just in case I never got Ted. I'm almost at the top of it now, and then I'll come back down to most recent comments. We'll call it a night. It's a hard gig, eh? Doing a show every single day. Loriani served one king. Ella, good night, everybody. Thank you. Lady J. Homestead. I got to most people. Colette S. Thank you, Colette. Double check. Yeah, I probably got most people. My apologies, anybody I didn't get. See everybody tomorrow night. It's been a struggle, eh? And then I've been doing a lot of extra work lately with the graphics. At the beginning, the first half of the show is a lot of graphics, right? And just doing single graphic can take 10 minutes to get it just right. I'll get quicker. I'll work harder. I'm sorry, I'll work harder. So we're going to do a fundraiser next week. We want to raise over $3,000 for a set of tracks and the mounts to put on the quad so we can spend the winter going out. I got out 3 times this week. I got to try to show that footage. Maybe I'll save it for the fundraiser, I suppose. And we've got to tell the story again of this year's expeditions, because the nuclear lobby through Google took down my site with all that documentation this year, and has really hurt this operation, and I just can't have that. That's not acceptable. We have the moral high grounds. We're good people trying to do moral and ethical things for all the species and for the future generations. I think that that's more important, that people like us exist, you know, against this incredible wave of evilness that we see. This little speck in the middle of chaos where there's some sanity is so unusual. God bless. Good night, everybody. We'll see everybody tomorrow night. Have a great night. A great day tomorrow. Take care.